Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ascent Studios, and we'll be discussing in this series the coming digital currency. I'm going to be following this because I can tell you guys weeks and weeks of research, watching this now for a few years, that digital currency is coming. The Federal Reserve is working on what they call Fed coin, a digital coin, digital currency in the United States in the event that the dollar continues to fall or the economic crisis worsens. So that is coming. And I would invite you all to come over to patreon.com/Kevin_ship, SHIPP.com. That's patreon.com/Kevin_ship. And go to How to Spot a Liar, that tier, and you'll find all of these programs. I've done several on detection of deception and how to spot lying. We're talking today about digital currency, the coming digital currency, and I want to introduce you all. And by the way, it's good to be back after some health challenges with both me and my wife for a couple months, bouncing back and catching up on all the off-the-grid farm work. We're back, so it's good to be back in the seat and doing well. We'll also be doing a lot of off-the-grid programs, showing how we did it. The farm is finished. We worked on it, just the two of us, just Sue and I alone, and a lot of YouTubing on carpentry and other things. So we'll be sharing that too. Back to digital currency. I'm introducing this to you all because it is so important. With digital currency, the government will have an algorithm on you for you to buy, sell, or do any financial transactions without the Fed's approval and dissemination of digital currency. I'll talk about the Microsoft patent. I've done a show on that where they discuss using wearables to transmit your biometric data to the cloud. Now remember that Amazon signed a $600 million contract with the CIA to, quote, monitor future trends, unquote, in the cloud. So just know that and be careful. And keep your heads up, because I'll be covering this regularly as this unfolds, and it will unfold. And eventually, it looks like there will also be a global currency. Several countries are introducing digital currencies right now. And I'll show you those countries as we go on. So let me share this with you as we open up here. And I want to give you guys an idea of what's coming down the road. It is with the economy, with the COVID just happening, its effect on the economy, inflation, the housing market, the job market, and on and on and on. And there is a global recession coming, starting in Europe, and there is a recession beginning here in the United States. And by all accounts of the economists that I have read and sourced, it's coming. The recession is here, and it's going to get worse. And of course, my whole goal is to alert you all so that you can prepare. We'll be talking a lot about preparation in coming programs. The perfect storm. And you remember my background. I went from a CIA officer on several operational assignments. I was on the protective detail of the director of the CIA, etc. Well, I left all that, wrote from the company of shadows. My family became desperately ill. You guys know that story. And this is the only picture that the CIA would let me release in my book. Blocked out the eyes of my family. They would not let me mention the names of my family. Can you imagine? Anyway, so what I've done is I've gone off the grid with an off-the-grid farm. I have been a constitutionalist. I always will be a constitutionalist. I see what's coming down the road, and it's ugly. Right now, under the current administration from the White House, it's very ugly. I couldn't have imagined the things that President Biden is doing. I could not have imagined that just a few years ago. It is just unbridled darkness. So we've gone off the grid. I will continue to provide updates to everybody as we go through all this, but we now have an off-the-grid farm, which we love. It's a lot of work, but it is true freedom. A lot of programs coming on that. They're fun. Digital currency is coming, and attached to that, the Fed would have all of your financial transactions in a huge database on the cloud. As you know, they've been pushing for a national and global ID. The CIA tried it after 9/11. Congress shot it down. Then they tried global COVID passports. That has been shot down for now. But it turns out that Oracle a huge company, Oracle, just got a big contract, multi-million-dollar contract with, guess who? The CIA, to monitor COVID vaccinations. Yes, you heard that right. What in the world is the CIA doing, monitoring or having anything to do with Americans within the United States? That is against their charter. It is a significant violation of the Constitution. I want you all to watch for these warning signs. These are the economic warning signs that the experts tell us to watch for. Reduced bank capital. Central banks around the world are unprepared to deal with a new banking crisis. The financial system still would be in great peril if one or more big banks fail, despite reforms enacted after 2008. And after 2008 and the so-called reforms, they went back to doing exactly the same thing they did that led up to the 2008 crisis. So keep an eye on the banks. Keep an eye on banks' capital. Deutsche Bank just announced that it is in trouble. JP Morgan is looking at digital currency. It is pretty convinced it's facing trouble. And by the way, who just bought? Well, it's been about 4 years now. Guess who just bought the largest bank vault in America? JP Morgan's bank vault in New York. Guess who now owns that? The Chinese. How stupid can we be and still breathe? The second one, soaring private debt, credit card debt, which is growing hugely now because people can't pay their soaring bills. Electric bills went up 20% in some states, Florida being an example. It's going up in just about every state in the United States. Electric bills are going up. In one case, they went up 20%. Now, this is before Ron DeSantis, when electric bills went up 20%. So he's not responsible for that. He's got to deal with it. But just understand that this is coming. Credit card debt and the interest on credit card debt is increasing and growing because people cannot pay their electric bills. People cannot pay other bills. In some cases, they can't even afford to buy food. Food is so ridiculous. Secret Sue and I went to the grocery store and we bought, maybe a half of the conveyor belt of just necessities that we used to get. We walked out, I think it was, we had three small plastic bags of what we bought, and the bill was $150. I know you all are seeing the same thing. That is a warning sign. Duh. Even though a lot of media outlets refuse to cover this, we all need to watch this and understand what is happening. It's critical. There's a very important verse in the book of Proverbs that says, a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but a fool presses on to destruction. So I'm doing this so you guys can be informed and you all can make your own decisions on how you're preparing for this. And we're going to be talking a lot about that in future programs. Ballooning federal debt. My gosh. Quantitative easing. You know, where they print fake money with nothing, no gold, nothing to back it up, just paper. Billions of dollars in paper with nothing to back it up, floating around out there, throwing gas on the fire with deficit spending. How severe will the next economic downturn be? The deficit is $31 trillion right now, everyone. We'll never be able to pay that off. Now the United States is struggling just to pay the interest, and they're getting to the point, the U.S. government, where they're not going to be able to do that either. If and when that happens, we're looking at a severe financial crisis. Student debt is a staggering $1.3 trillion, according to Barron's, which says, quote, there are parallels to 2008. There are massive amounts of unaffordable loans being made to people who can't pay them, and the easy availability of those loans is leading to asset inflation. You remember good old President Biden did his student loan forgiveness program, but only to wealthy students. And all the others that were struggling got nothing. And that's probably going to go to the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to be overturned. All right. National debt, mushrooming. It's got to be repaid. We have no choice. We owe other countries like China a lot of money. The federal government is going to have to find a place to get this money, and guess where it's going to come from? They're going to have to extract large amounts to service this national debt. And what's the usual solution? Taxes, raising taxes. We leave less for all government spending, investing, and saving, meaning when the government's trying to save the country from collapse, they're going to start pulling money from programs that are designed to protect and benefit the American people. That's the government's job, is the freedom and the safety of its citizens. So the government is going to stop spending on programs that benefit people, especially people in need, to try to take that money and save a financial collapse when the government is unable to pay off the interest rate on this debt. Slower economic growth is coming. The private sector is struggling to fund the public sector and its spending. The corporations are issuing alerts. Just go in and Google it. They're all over the place, from Ford to JP Morgan, on and on and on. Barron's and others are raising a red flag about all of this. Higher taxes, I would say you can pretty much count on them coming. The longer Congress waits to address the debt, which they have been doing for years, just kicking it down the road over and over and over, because many of them only care about re-election, getting other gigs, other houses to expand their own personal wealth, with the exception of some notable ones, the best of which would be Rand Paul, who refuses to take part in this, what the government is doing in the national debt, in them raising taxes, and in pulling money from things that help U.S. citizens. Rand Paul is an excellent congressman who has never wavered from his constitutional position. Congress kicking it down the road. That's why we're at $31 trillion. U.S. national debt, this is from Statista, a good statistics website. You can see the national debt, as I mentioned, has surpassed $31 trillion. $31 trillion. Let me give you an idea of what that is. The national debt stacked in dollar bills would stretch from the earth to the moon 5 times. Stacked in dollar bills, thin dollar bills, everybody. Stacked would go from the earth to the moon 5 times. That's how much $1 trillion is. Unbelievable, or excuse me, the national debt. Right now, it's I think it's increasing even more than that. The national debt to $31 trillion. Apologize. The national debt, $31 trillion, not just dollars in terms of the interest on the debt. The entire debt itself, $31 trillion. Stacked to the earth and moon 5 times. Just think about that for a moment. From the earth to the moon, 5 times in dollar bills is how big $31 trillion is. Okay, not the interest rate stack, but the total U.S. national debt of $31 trillion. It is mind-boggling. Do you think our government is ever going to be able to pay that off, especially with the economic crisis, even globally? It's happening. This is what the $31 trillion debt looks like in terms of a physical example. Let me give you another one. CBO projects that the annual interest rate cost will rise from $399 billion in 2022 to $1.2 trillion by 2032. Now, that's not the total national debt. That is just the interest. The interest now I think it's over $400 billion right now in interest, and I have the figure I'll show you later. But as of the creation of this slide, it was $399 billion, as if that's not enough. But the proposal, based on analysis, the projection rather, is that it's going to go to $1.2 trillion. This, ladies and gentlemen, is just the interest on this $31 trillion debt, which, as I mentioned, is also climbing. So you can imagine. And let me give you another idea what $1 trillion looks like. This is only $1 trillion, just $1 trillion. And you can look at it compared to a 747 jet, an 18-wheeler truck, some major mansions and other large buildings, compared to the little man standing down there. You can see this is only $1 trillion, everybody, just $1 trillion. And we're dealing with 31 trillion. Incredible. COVID-19 has pumped it up. A lot of this COVID-19 is responsible for pumped it up at 27 trillion. It's now gone, as I mentioned, to 31 trillion for the entire national debt here now in 2022 when I'm filming this program. You can multiply this by 27 times, now 31 times this size of the amount of money in $100 bills, not dollar bills, $100 bills. What 1 trillion looks like. You could imagine, take this stack and stack it 31 more times, and you got our current national debt of 31 trillion. My gosh, what have we done? Interest payments on the U.S. national debt as of 2019 were $400 billion, according to this study by the Pew Research Center. It is higher than that now. Just the interest, everybody. That is so, so important because our government is on the verge of not being able to pay the interest on this debt. Now it's gone up in 2022 to over 593 billion. I mentioned that this was coming, and there it is. $593 billion a year, just the interest alone on the national debt of 31 trillion. This is going to collapse, everybody. This is going to crash. It has to, statistically, has to. Interest payments on the U.S. national debt, this article just came out 3 days ago. The interest payments on the national debt are going to be just on the verge of being larger than the entire defense spending budget within the next 5 years. This comes from Moody's Analytics. It'll be larger than everything we spend to fund the Department of Defense and its spending. The interest on the national debt is going to be bigger than that. Just to give you another perspective, the federal government spent $475 billion on net interest payments to service the national debt during 2021. It's grown in 2022. When the U.S. can no longer pay the interest on the national debt, we have a severe economic crisis. All the analysts that I consult, that are not talking heads on the major news networks, all the analysts that I consult and Forbes magazine and others are saying that this is inevitable. This economic crisis is inevitable. I agree, based on what I've researched, 100%. There will come a point in the next 5 years, probably, when the U.S. can no longer afford the interest on its national debt. And we got real problems. Guess who, in addition to owning the J.P. Morgan Bank in New York, Bank Vault, guess who is the top foreign holder of U.S. Treasury securities, meaning we owe this government. We're in debt to this government because they bought Treasury securities. You guessed it, China. Our government owes China $1.1 trillion. Now, China just raised the interest on that debt that they hold against us. If they just raised the interest rate on that debt 2 or 3%, it would send us into an economic tailspin. That's the kind of control even they have over our economy. Put that in the context of China's move on Taiwan, Russia's move on Ukraine, China's threats of going nuclear if we interfere with Ukraine, on and on and on. And we're in debt to them, $1.1 trillion. How stupid can our elected officials be and still breathe? Food insecurity. A chart going up to 2020 shows the number of households that cannot afford to pay food, especially to buy food, especially households with children. And this is growing. We all go to the grocery store and then we see our grocery bill. My gosh, it's incredible. And of course, you're not hearing much of this on the major media because they are bound to serve and bow to their advertisers, period. Ching, ching, it's all about money. In the case of some of the networks, they are an arm of the Democratic Party, and so they're going to spin things in that direction. But most media outlets are dependent on their advertisers and bow to their advertisers. This is what it looks like in terms of food cost and insecurity in the United States. Shocking and frankly scary. Remember in COVID, because of the COVID economy, these are photographs of the lines at food bank stores. These are middle-class Americans, poor and middle-class Americans that could not afford to buy food. So they were lining up like this into food banks at churches and other organizations just to get food and feed their family. This happened. These are actual photographs when the COVID economy hit. Sky-high electric bills. Your electric bills are going up. As I mentioned, in one state, they went up 20% and climbing. Your electric bill's going to go up. Just prepare yourself financially and economically. We all know this. Ouch. Because every time we have to fill our car up, we feel the pain. The national average gas price as of this year, 2022, hovering around $3.50. Now, wasn't it a coincidence that gas prices fell? Excuse me. Wasn't it a coincidence that gas prices fell just before the midterm elections? Amazing. And now they're starting to go back up. Watch them. They're going to go up even more. You know, honesty in government, don't ever expect that. Anyway, U.S. gas prices, it's crazy. It's nuts. Now, I'll get into the COVID economy more in the next program. I wanted to introduce you guys to what we're facing, what is coming, and then, of course, we'll be talking about what we can do about this to prepare for what is, in my view, inevitable. So great to be back. Stay with us. Comments are welcome below this video, and I'll see you next time.